right, welcome to the second episode of Kick It To Me, a podcast for Nuffies by Nuffies. I guess that's what we're going with now. Anyway, this podcast has been proven to cure insomnia, which I think, hell yeah, I love it. Anyway, so got a bit of a fun show planned. We're going to go through the round just gone, round 17. We're going to look at a media call. We're going to go, oh, was this good? Was this bad? We're going to talk about that, get you thinking. We're then going to look at team of the week, or I'm going to put a team forward that I think was the best performed, justify whether it's good, whether it's bad. You can call me a flog if you want. We're going to look at the upcoming round, both from a AFL purist perspective of who I think will win, and also a Supercoach perspective, and go, oh hey, I think this, and we're going to talk about some ideas for Supercoach. Then we're going to wrap it up. We're going to do a bit of a, oh, that's kind of funny, that's interesting kind of thing. And that's where we're going to go. That's going to be our episode for this week. Hopefully you get some enjoyment. Don't forget, if you want to leave some feedback, more than welcome to. You can tell me to go F myself. That is also welcome. It's all good for the algorithm. On that note, I just want to thank No Copyright Sounds for providing the intro track. I'm going to put a link to their page in the profile. It's copyright-free music, but they do some great stuff. I'd wholly encourage you to listen to them. But before I start, now, I read a lot this week about how the umpires were bad. And whether or not the umpires are bad, I think, is almost a pointless argument, because if you think, oh, hey, the umpires were bad, that's fine. Think that. But umpires make the game work. Like, you criticizing an umpire sort of says more about you than it does about them. Telling them to know the rules, learn the game, is just like, it's such a cop-out, and I think it's pretty weak. So, I don't know, like, unless you want to take up the whistle and do it yourself, then, like, I really think you just come across like a fool. I mean, in the heat of the moment, white line fever, cool, get angry. But, like, if you're still angry 3 or 4 days on from there, it's bloody cringe. It's just so cringy, and is more a reflection of you than them at that point. But hey, what do I know? Anyway, let's jump into the round recap. We're not going to talk about umpires anymore, because we are better than that here. Alright, time for the round 17 recap. We start with the Geelong Melbourne game. Geelong too strong by 28 points. A lot of late goals for Geelong, but I think this was a case of Geelong showing and vindicating what I said in last week's podcast about Geelong's systems being so well set up compared to other clubs. Like, they just recruit players to do roles, and those players on Thursday did those roles. Overall, just too good. They should have probably, you argue, won by more. 12 goals, 19. Bad kicking is bad football. So they probably should have won by more. Melbourne will be disappointed, but at the end of the day, I don't think this damages Melbourne's premiership chances, but I think it enhances Geelong. So I am really excited for when, hopefully, these two teams meet in September, but I think we have our clear 1 and 2 on the ladder. I don't see these two teams changing. It might just be a matter of what's the finishing order for these two. Probably the big note for Melbourne is Oliver's broken hand. I think he's out. It could be out for a week. I think they were going to just have a look at it. I think he's going in for surgery, and they'll find out more later in the week, because this was recorded on Monday. I'm just going to put it bluntly, it was an accident. You see that incident play out 100 times in a match. Well, not hundreds, but 100 times over a season. You're going to hit a hand once in a while. That's just a fact. The MRO did not look at it, and I think that is the right call. On to Friday night. The Sydney Swans flexing their muscles, showing their credentials against the Western Bulldogs. And for me, the big reason two big reasons why Sydney won. The first one, cutting off the run of Bailey Dale, who propels so much of the Western Bulldogs forward momentum. And secondly, when they did go forward, Paddy McCartan was there to clean up. He had an absolute day out. So many intercept marks. I'm willing to say he has been the recycled player of the season. It's either him or Stengel for that. I'm going with Paddy McCartan because he has made Sydney so much better. He's given them that second key tall, and he's playing that role superbly. So well done there. Another interesting thing I noted, and I think this shows the Swans' versatility. Callum Mills playing more of an outside game. Throughout the season, I think he's been playing more of an inside game, where this week he reverted more to that outside game that he did play more of last year in the previous few seasons. So I think that does show the Swans' versatility in that regard. So I think the Swans really demonstrated why they are the real deal, why they will be in the talks for the 4. I don't think they get to the 4, but I think them for the 8 is very comfortable there. Also, Tom Papley, God, is there, as a guy in your forward line, is there a player you would rather have more in that small forward, half forward role? He's having a great season. He's such a good player. Disappointing from the Dogs. I think they have an uphill battle to make the 8. I think they do have an elimination final, but we'll talk about that in the round preview. On Saturday, we were treated to some cracking games in the afternoon. I can't really say that about the evening, but let's just talk about the Arvo. Firstly, North Melbourne showing that they can play good football. Collingwood had a down week, but North Melbourne deserve a lot of praise. They beat Collingwood for 3 quarters. Collingwood stormed home to score, I believe it was the last 5 goals of the game to get the win. For me, this shows that good teams win. That's a good trait Collingwood have. I think this further ensconces them into the 8. For North Melbourne, I think this shows that they will win a game at some point this year. I think they upset someone. I think there's a lot to work with at that club. I don't know how this review goes. I genuinely don't. But I know that the future isn't all doom and gloom there. They have been hammered pillar to post all year. And this game showed them, hey, we are good enough. Davis Uniacke, I butchered that one, eh? Destroyed the Collingwood midfield. Nick Larkey, you show what happens when you kick it and you can run and jump into the ball, make Collingwood's life tough. It just shows what happens. North Melbourne, I don't think are absolutely horrible. I think they win another game somewhere. Collingwood get the win, and that's all that matters. For the Gold Coast Suns, wowee. Is there a bigger statement for the Gold Coast to come down from 40 points, have a 42-point turnaround, if my numbers are correct? If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments how I'm a horrible human. Richmond, they played so well for 3 quarters, and Gold Coast just kept trying to stay in there. It looked like they were about to fall away, and they fought it out. And Richmond let the foot off the throat, and that's a big win for the Gold Coast. They stay in touch of the 8. Richmond leave the door open for a few teams. I don't know what you want to say. If you're Richmond, you look at that game, you say, Rioli played well. Shia Bolton played well. They provided so much run, both for Rioli out the back line and for Shia Bolton out wide. Played such a good game inside mid as well. And then on top of that, up forward was doing some brilliant things. You get that Shia Bolton, you are going to have a good year. That's just a fact. He played so well. For Gold Coast, Took Miller. I love that he's become the player he has for the Gold Coast. He's become a leader. He is a leader there. Him and Jared Witts. Noah Anderson starting to string games together. That kick after the siren. Just, what more can you say? Ice in his veins. That's already been said. I think there's a lot here. Gold Coast are the team I want to take that 8th spot from Richmond. I'm happy if Richmond make it, but I'm barracking for the Gold Coast to make the 8. And unless you're a team contending for the 8, you're probably barracking for Gold Coast too, because hell yeah, I want to see Gold Coast do it. On Saturday night, actually, this game was hype. This was like the St Kilda can win this. This is a danger game. And it turned into after half time, especially, it turned into a very one-sided match. Fremantle showing why they are in the top 4 conversation and showing why St Kilda are currently outside the 8. I don't know, like, what more you can honestly say about Fremantle. They are such a good team. They just tackled harder. They won the contested ball. Just St Kilda stopped playing, essentially. And this vindicates my point about St Kilda. Consistency. Depth on their list. It vindicates those points from last week, similar to the Geelong game. And I think if you're a Saints fan, you're ultimately disappointed because you had that 2020 year. You got to the second week in finals. You had all the upside. And since then, it's just been disappointment. For Fremantle, I think top 4. I'm willing to say they are finishing 3rd. St Kilda, it's a real coin toss whether they make it at this point. They need a lot to go right. Fremantle, though, flex the muscles, show why they're good. Sean Darcy, absolute superb player. Nat 5 playing more midfield, and that's going to be a scary prospect going forward. And Andrew Brayshaw, is he not Fremantle's best player at this point? If not their most vital in that engine room. Port Adelaide, Giants. I don't really think there's a lot to say here that you're not going to see by the score. Port Adelaide just way too strong. Going forward, they destroyed them out wide. Connor Rozee absolutely dominated them going forward. The finals are alive for Port Adelaide. I think the fact they started 0-5 to even be in the conversation shows that they are a good team, but you are coming back from 0-5. That is a big ask. For Giants, this essentially puts a line through the season. And they had no outside run. Just for context, Lockie Whitfield, probably when you think of outside player for GWS, you think Lockie Whitfield. He had 10 disposals, absolutely provided no outside run. He got essentially shut out the game. And I think that kills GWS, that momentum going forward, because that brings in a lot of other players, especially your Toby Greens, who didn't play that well, and gives guys like Jesse Hogan a chance going forward. So it is very systemic, where if one player, that key cog, struggles, it does let them down. Brisbane v Essendon, one of my favourite games this round. Essendon played well. And I'm going to make a comment about the end. I want you to think about the Essendon game when I get there. But Essendon's last 2 weeks have been chef's kiss. Laverde and Caldwell kept Danaher and Lockie Neal quiet. Caldwell, I'm pretty sure, still following Lockie Neal. That's how good of a job he's done tagging. The run and carry from Hind out the back line, Langford into that penetrating kick on the wing into the forward line, along with Guelphy, just was such a difference. Essendon going forward looked so smooth and gave guys like 2 meter Peter Wright a chance going forward, and he kicked 5, where Brisbane going forward looks so stuttery, and they couldn't get that outside run as well as they normally can. That keeps the 4 open, so that 4th spot, Brisbane has kept the door ajar. I think they should be good enough, but it's one of those things where Essendon played really well, Brisbane did not play well, and that was the difference in 4 points. Going through the ground, I did look at and notice Oscar McInerney. I feel like he was like the only player where I could definitively say, yeah, he won his spot. And I think that shows how valuable rucks that can rest forward and kick goals are. And that's going to be reflected in my team of the week. Hawthorn Adelaide, I'm not going to lie, this match, did not, like, this was the game I looked at and was like, it's there. Cool. There's no implications for finals here. For me, this game was won in the first quarter. Hawthorn, Mitch Lewis kicked 5 goals in the first half. Like, I don't know what more you want me to say. Dylan Moore was unstoppable. But I think the big thing is, and I'm going to just go through here, Laird had 40 touches. And you think, great, 40 touches, but only 298 metres gained. That's quite disappointing. Matt Crouch, 20 plus touches at 102 metres gained. And Dawson, well below 15 touches at 258 metres gained. That tells you right away there is very minimal drive. You've got two guys trying to get the ball out in Laird and Crouch. Why are they both there? Pick one. Let them do that job. You don't need two dudes doing the same job. I think that's why Crouch probably is not in the side as frequently, and I think that speaks volumes. For me, Hawthorn are so up and down. I think there is a bright future, though. Let's move on to West Coast Carlton. West Coast and Carlton. So, this was a game of the first quarter, second half. That first quarter, West Coast, I think, was still in the change rooms because Carlton just blew them off the park. And then in the second quarter, Carlton did not leave the huddle. And West Coast came right back. And it was very much neck and neck heading into that halftime break. And Charlie Curnow was that big difference for Carlton where he kept them going. He was that target all day. Worked tirelessly. Especially when that game was to be won, he was there. And then the second half happened. And Cripps played so well in that second half. Hewitt found the ball. Walsh found the ball. Though midfielders really worked into that game. For West Coast, can't really... I think this shows where West Coast are falling short. A lot of their big name players are underdone this year. And that's just one of those things. Like, you're underdone. You are going to be overran by teams like Carlton. For Carlton, big win. Well done to Carlton. I think with the results playing out the way they did, especially Brisbane, this keeps them in the hunt. Now, I want to talk about the Brisbane-Essendon game just quickly. Brisbane-Essendon demonstrates why the AFL is a lot closer than we think. We all go, Essendon's no good. And then they come out and they beat Sydney and they beat Brisbane. Last 2 weeks. And then 3 of the last 4 if you throw in St Kilda. What separates the best from the worst, I think, is not that much. And that means a team on their best day is capable of beating a team like Essendon on their best day is very much capable of beating a really good team like a Melbourne, a Brisbane on their worst day. So the AFL is a very close competition. So to say someone's an easy beat, I think, is very unfair and very narrow-minded. Anyway, let's go into the media calls. And I want to talk about a really interesting thing. And I noticed, there was a bit of a not a brouhaha, but a thing a lot of people cared about. And it is the labeling of Dustin Martin being petulant for a doorstop. So, just quickly, a doorstop is when a player or a person is stopped at their front door, their personal residence, by the media. You used to see it a lot when players leave or would leave the hospital from an injury or surgery, and they'd be like, "Oh, how you going?" Yada, yada, yada. And that's still somewhat commonplace. I mean, with the way social media is now, they don't need to. The club can just send a press release, or you can put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. So the information is more accessible. Now, Dustin Martin did not take too kindly to someone coming to his house and essentially going, "Hey, how's your injury going?" and all that. And this has created quite a storm. And I just wanted to dive a little deeper. So I've got 2 articles here. The first one's from Fox Sports, and it just goes through Kane Corn's comment of accusing the Tigers star of real arrogance and being petulant. Because 7 News Melbourne reported Mitch Cleary was essentially snubbed by Martin. and this is a follow-up where he injured his hamstring in the Tigers' win against West Coast. So I'm just going to read the excerpt. Cleary approached Martin on the streets ahead of the scan and asked how the 30-year-old was feeling. Martin walked past the reporter and the cameraman without giving a response, so giving the silent treatment. Cool. And then that's where the follow-ups come from. And there is one thing I want to raise here, and I want you to keep a note of this. The 1.2 million check per year, basically for media rights that 7 Fox Footy have, where they view it as, this is my right to go and view the players. So let's look at the second article. Article 2. And this is by... Let's bring that up, sorry. SEN, and this goes into a touch more depth. So this is taking the South Australian take, and there was a comparison made to Robbie Gray, and this was Sample star Andrew Hayes, who's a Channel 7 reporter as well, that Martin should follow Robbie Gray's example. Robbie Gray doesn't like doing media. That's a well-known thing in South Australia, but if he does it, he'll do it and move on with his life. And so that's where the brouhahas come in. And, like, the real interesting thing is, for me, was... And there was a Nathan Buckley comment, so I'll bring that up. So Nathan Buckley essentially said... sorry, it was in the... My mistake. It's in the Fox Sports article. So let's just go back to the Fox Sports article. If there's nothing to add to the story, why report it? What's the purpose of running this vision? So he questioned why, like, if there's nothing to report, why we're reporting. So he's just gone, this is stupid. What is the purpose? And he's further elaborate, doorstopping is the height of disrespect. It violates personal private space and is no fun for the journos asked to do it, nor for the targets. It got the treatment it deserves. And honestly, I agree with Buckley here. I'm going to do a very lame justification of why they do it, but I'm just going to say right off the bat, I'm only doing this for impartiality. It's a load of wank. Let's be real here. Like, the only justification I can think is, there's a news cycle, we need to sell newspapers, we need to get clicks, we need to get views. That's it. That's the only justification I personally have at this point. And again, it is so lame. I cannot think of anything else. That's how lame I think it is. It is Dustin Martin. People want to talk about Dustin Martin. Even though Dustin Martin hasn't had the prolific years he has in the Richmond Peak, he is still one of the most explosive players in the AFL. So people want to write about him. And he's really fascinating because he's so quiet. And lastly, that 1.2 million for media rights, Channel 7, Fox Sports want value for their money. That's my lame justification. I cannot emphasize, I think this is lame. I feel dirty even saying that argument. But here's why it's wrong. And I'm going to intersplice this with a bit of my personal life. So firstly, personal versus public life. Could you imagine going down to Chadstone shops and seeing your kid's school teacher, or your school teacher if you're at school age, your kid's school teacher, your school teacher, and harassing them and saying, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? You'd be treated as an utter nutcase, wouldn't you? And you'd be like, why are you harassing a teacher in their private life? So, why are football players exempt? Why is Dustin Martin not allowed a private life? He's an intensely private person to begin with, but camping out at their private residence, like, that's so inane. That is so stupid. Like, why? There's got to be some separation between private and public life. I think that's just a fact. It's like I remember it was like Nick Rewalt during the St Kilda Schoolgirl, and so I was listening to a podcast on Sacked with Brendan Goddard, and he talked about how it was really hard for Nick Rewalt in the wake of that new photo scandal, where people would come up to him and wave it in his face, and like, you don't want that in your private life. And I think that's like that here. You want that separation of public and private life. I'm just going to delve deeper into Robbie Gray's argument. I think it's great Robbie Gray does that, and I think that shows what a stand-up kind of human he is. But my counterpoint to that is you're not, like, you are a damn legend of Port Adelaide Football Club and damn legend of the AFL in reality. You're not Dustin Martin. You don't live in Victoria where, like, the news cycle is so broken. It's like 6 months of the year, AFL is the number one thing. And with the market share the AFL has in Victoria, it's a way of life. And so that media fishbowl personality, like media fishbowl presence, essentially, that is a lot. And then lastly, Buckley's point, back onto it. If there's nothing to report, why is this such a big deal? And like that's my point. Were we that desperate for clicks that day that we needed to run this? Because if we do, that's kind of sad about the media. And I almost feel sorry for Mitch Cleary. It's not his fault. I guess my main issue is the media practice. It's just so why? It feels like the best analogy I can think of is a lawyer chasing an ambulance, and that's really sad. Because people deserve better than that, and there deserves to be a separation between public and private life. But let me know what you think in the comments. Like, because I am really curious to hear what you think. Anyway, let's move on to the team of the week. So we start with the defense. Now, I want to go through the whole team and justify my picks afterwards. So, because there's going to be a few players that you look at and you're like, they should be on the field, but I'm going to tell you why they're not. So we start in the defense. Dan Rioli from Richmond, absolute star, drove Richmond's ball movement out the back line. We need him there. He's such a good run and carry player. We need that. Laverde did the job on Danaher, shut him out the game. Was aided by the midfield, but he won practically every contest or broke even. So he gets the nod as the fullback. And then Shannon Hearn, very similar to to Rioli. He drove so much of the Eagles going forward in their high periods, held it together in the back line. Such a great leader, great marshal, holds that West Coast Eagles back line together. Really well played this weekend. Across the half back line, Mitch Duncan, when I think run and carry, and I think that Geelong team and trying to get that run momentum going forward, Mitch Duncan's not the first name I think of. I always normally think of Zach Tui and your Tom Stewart. Since Tom Stewart's gone out there, Mitch Duncan's really stepped into that role. So he's found his role in that team, and I hope they do carry it going forward. Or he plays further up into a more traditional winger role instead of running out the half back. On the other flank, Blake Hardwick had an absolute ripper game. And then Paddy McCartan. What can I really say that I haven't said earlier in the Bulldogs Sydney Swans review? He shut out his opponent, played a great game. He's recruited of the year in that recycled player thing. The more I talk, the more I think about it, the better than Stengel he is, and that's no knock on Stengel. That's just how good McCartan's been. On to Blake Hardwick. Just quickly, I want to double back on that. That run and carry, again, really set up the Hawks win, and it was through the whole day where he just kept them going forward, and that momentum, they were so smooth going forward compared to Adelaide, and Blake Hardwick was a big reason of that. On to the midfield. We'll start out the wings. Andrew Gaff, Callum Mills. Andrew Gaff, best game of the season. A lot of run and carry in those key periods. And Callum Mills played a traditionally wider role than normal, but that run, and this is a common theme, and I think we're starting to see what I look for a lot, and that run and carry, especially out wide, is so pivotal because it gives you more width across the ground, and it's a lot harder to defend wide than it is narrow. So for Gaff and Mills, that's why they're in. Penetrating disposals, ball winning, great run forward. What more can you ask? The midfield's always a hard position to pick. Sean Darcy battled really well, kicked 2 goals. I think it made the St Kilda Rucks look very disappointing. like, if you were to say kill the rucks, you at least want to be breaking even, especially with Sean Darcy doing majority of the work. I think he just outplayed Ryder, outplayed Marshall. That's why he gets my nod. Big reason that Andrew Brayshaw was able to get first nod at the ball. Noah Anderson played out of his skin. Game of the career. To kick the winning goal, I could not leave him out. Zach Merritt, since Darcy Parish has dropped off and been injured, he's been so good. Well done, Zach Merritt. Like, what more can you say? Main engine room, won Essendon the game, essentially, with his work getting it in and out. I know there were other players, but a lot of that out the guts was Zach Merritt. Davis Uniacke for North Melbourne, absolutely carved up Collingwood. Gave him first use coming out. Just his leg speed, his power. It was a big reason that North side was so competitive. And this is one of those reasons I think North is in better hands than we think. So, well done there. In the forward line, so this was a very interesting one. Dylan Moore from Hawthorn. He was just everywhere. He did push forward, he did rotate through the forward line. So, that's how I justify putting him on a flank. He did spend a lot of time in the guts, but with those rotations, I felt I could justify putting him on a forward flank. Charlie Curnow, what haven't I already said in the Carlton recap? He just was the target, carried the side, pushed them through, got them off to that great start, kept them going in the third quarter. What a great season. I love seeing him back. And Connor Rozee, that forward drive, those inside 50s, the 4 goals, I love it. Well done, Connor. Oscar McInerney, that second ruck, resting forward. 2 goals really could have been that difference, especially he did have a late chance as well to put Brisbane a lot closer. He was the only player that won his position against Essendon and win it quite comfortably. Tom Papley in the other pocket, again, he carved the Bulldogs up. He should have kicked more goals, amazingly. He could have easily, I think, had 7 or 8. And then 2 meter Peter Wright. God, he's so good when he runs at the ball. And you got to, yeah. On the bench, we got Took Miller, Nick Larkey, and Sam Doherty. So Nick Larkey as that rotating key forward. I know it's a bit untraditional, or not traditional, but I will talk about why in a moment. His run at the ball shows what a great player he can be. Took Miller, absolute leader. And Sam Doherty, another great leader for Carlton. He was providing run and carry at the back line, and I believe that was one of those pivotal moments where he kick-started that run in the third quarter for Carlton. Out the back, just pushing them forward. And then lastly, Shai Bolton. I put Shai Bolton on the bench. I did toss up putting him back on the field. Just what he did for Richmond, it was, if he didn't play, Gold Coast win that a lot more comfortably. He had just an absolute brilliant game. He can do so much. He can play outside. He played outside. He did really well on the inside, and up forward, he was doing, like, he kicked 3 goals going forward as well. So Shai Bolton, he was probably my player of the round, and I put him on the bench for that versatility. This team I am happy with. I think it's still a bit tall with Nick Larkey on the bench, but I am happy with the second ruck. So make of that what you will. Other players I can just consider the whole Geelong midfield because they played awesome. Oliver was the lone hand for Melbourne. Steele and Jack Sinclair, they played a really good half. Robbie Tarrant shut out Casbolt in the Gold Coast game. Goldstein as the second tall resting ruck for North made us look really silly as Collingwood. Much better player than Callum Collins-Jones. The Dacos boys for Collingwood kept them alive. Ridley and Hind and Langford as well was such a coin flip. I was really tempted to put them in. I just couldn't justify the spots. Jeremy Howe in that last quarter actually got on top of Larkey eventually. Finn Layson, lone hand in the ruck. And Jai Caldwell, really want to do a big shout out for him because I couldn't justify putting a tagger in the team, but God, he played well. He played so well. All right, let's do the round previews. Again, if you disagree with anything I say, you know what to do. You sit there and you tell me what a horrible, horrible human I am. Let's go quickly. So, real coin flip game. I am going to go St Kilda because I believe they're marginally more consistent than the Bulldogs. But I think if Bulldogs win, that's lights out for St Kilda. It's going to be really hard to come back from there. Collingwood v Adelaide. I think this will be a comfortable Collingwood win. They are playing well at the moment. They are winning. And that's what good sides do. They win. I think the Giants season is done. I do not see Brisbane challenging them. Brisbane will get a host of players back. They are a lot better with guys like Harris Andrews back in. Or hopefully he's back in. But they'll be a lot better for it. Richmond will... I don't see North getting the upset here against Richmond. Just do not see it. Geelong should be too good for Carlton. But it is a real danger game for Geelong. For the Dockers, again, a danger game. But I think this is how they solidify themselves in the top 4. And then on Sunday, Hawthorn v the Eagles. I think this is very much... this game's on. I'm going to pick Hawthorn for no other reason than they played really well on the weekend. I'm not going to lie. If I had to skip a game, I feel like it would be this game. I'm just not invested. I'm sorry. Melbourne versus Port Adelaide. This is an interesting game. I think this game tells me a lot about Melbourne in terms of where are they at. If they bounce back, they can win this by a fair margin. Gawn will be better for the run. Him and Jackson will sync up better. Petrarca had a down game. Especially with Oliver a chance to miss if he's not playing. That gives those guys like Petrarca a chance to be the absolute leading man. But I don't see how Port wins. I don't see it. I think Melbourne are too strong. Essendon versus Gold Coast Suns. This is a hard game. I think Essendon can win, but I am going to be biased here. I am going for the team I want to make the finals, and I'm going to go the Gold Coast Suns. But I just want to draw your attention back here. Just to show you how much of a knife edge this Bulldogs-St Kilda game is, let's switch the results to Bulldogs here. If you switch your results to the Bulldogs, 2 things happen. Firstly, it sort of gives the Port Adelaide team a bit of a sniff. They are 2 games out the 8 still, yes, but I think this keeps them in with a sniff because you don't have to overcome 9th and 8th. You just have to get past 8th, so you just got to win. The other thing that interests me, and I'll just bring this up here, is the Suns are suddenly really in the mix here. St Kilda fall behind because of their bad percentage. So St Kilda's percentage, those 41-point losses, those bigger losses, really start to detract away from them. So our finals, or the final series, is going to take shape based on this St Kilda Bulldogs game. Now, for the record, I think St Kilda are more consistent. I think the Bulldogs' best is better than St Kilda's best, but I think the Bulldogs' worst is very, very bad. But that's why I've got to back St Kilda. That slightly bit more consistency. Let's look at Supercoach quickly. I am mindful of running long, so we'll just talk quickly. I'm not going to really look at trades. For me, 2-3, 2-9, very garbage this round. My team, I have spaffed it up the wall to the point it's almost embarrassing. I will show it just because, screw it, I've got no shame. There is the team in all its mediocrity. You can see here, I've kept Ridley like a moron. I didn't trade out Hall because I heard he'd be out for 1 week. Watch that bite me in the ass. Paddy Cripps I've persisted with way too long. I ended up trading Jack Steele in for Darcy Parish when I heard Darcy Parish is going to be out for 4 weeks. Again, I'm stupid. I have stuck with Braden Pruce because I can't get any ruckman. I wish I had my time back again and didn't keep Pruce. And then lastly, Luke Jackson. The only thing in my team I actually like is my bench coverage, where I have Jackson essentially becoming cover for 3 lines with DPP. So if there's a midfield out, I can pivot it forward into the mids and put Jackson on the bench. Of course, that only works if Pruce plays. Otherwise, he's a perma cover for the rucks. I think the only trade concern you have is if you had to upgrade, which I guess if you're playing for leagues, sure. If you're playing for overall, you're probably fully upgraded. You probably were by the buys. If you have Parish, like me, you're probably looking at a midfielder. My quick options are Zach Merritt, absolute tear at the moment. Then your top line, 115 mids, Clayton Oliver if he plays, Rory Laird, Took Miller, and Lockie Neal, along with Jackson McRae. After that, Sam Walsh. I think he's a better version of Patrick Cripps. Then Petrarca, I think he can turn it big. I think he's got that discount. Melbourne are going to play finals, so there's a bit of vested interest there. You've got Dawson from Adelaide, a really fun DPP pick. I think if you want some more flexibility around your DPPs, Dawson is a good shout. And then lastly, if you really are short on cash, Jack Steele, I think, is a fabulous shout because St Kilda are going to be playing, like, every game is all, not every game is going to be must win. They probably will drop a game or two. But they're going to be playing 4 finals up until round 23. So I think there's a bit of investment there. Now, let's talk about something I can control, and that is captaincy options. So let's bring up the captaincy options. So I'm going to divide this into captains and vice captains. So in a moment, I'll just be going through certain players. So on the first game of the evening, Jack McRae versus St Kilda. He's previously averaged 101. Last 3 scores are 120, 93, 149. He has a capacity to go big. After that, Laird v Collingwood. And we can see 101.8. But the last 2, in 2020, he rocked out a 185 and a 144. He is my pick for vice captain. Like, he is that safe pick. And I'm going to explain why compared to McRae at the end. Lockie Neal, he's up against GWS. He's averaged 119 against them in the past, with previous scores of 151, 87, 164. He loves playing GWS. I think that is a really good shout. Lockie Neal does not have 2 bad games in a row. It's a bit of a Hail Mary if you are really desperate. Richmond are up against North Melbourne, and I think Shia Bolton is that potential to go into the 160s consistently. So I think that is a good shout right there. He previously has gone 102 and 66. I think the 34 was injury affected, but he can beat up on those weaker sides. So I think that's always a good shout if you need a massive Hail Mary. Moving on to the second half of the players I would pick as my captaincy picks. Andrew Brayshaw, 4 midfielder at the moment. Against Sydney, only averaged 99, but that includes a 49 his debut year. The past 3 scores, 116, 122, 109. Picture of consistency, which is what you want from your captain. Looking at Oliver, if Oliver plays, he would be my next look against Port Adelaide. 105, 118, 68. Had his down game against them earlier in the year. I don't think he'll play bad again. I think Melbourne have a lot to answer for. I think they're going to be up and about. Again, if you need another Hail Mary play, I think Petrarca is your man. A 173 in the last year is very tempting. Another picture of consistency is our man Took Miller. Against Essendon give up a lot of points, very similar to Collingwood. So his past three are 134, 65, and most recently 103. I think Touk Miller is a picture of consistency. Essendon are playing well. I'd be very hesitant, especially with the job Jai Caldwell did. I can see him following Touk Miller around. I would say Touk Miller, a lot of hesitancy. And then, lastly, your Hail Mary play, Maxi Gawn. He can go big. He has in the past. He averages 115 against Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide, no recognised ruck at the moment. I think if you are back against the wall, you need a big score or you are done. Maxi Gawn, if you have him or are bringing him in, is such a good shout. I think it is a ballsy play. I like it. It can backfire, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So, on that note, my top three are Laird, and I'll be going Laird vice-captain. Colin will give up a lot of points, into Neil. Laird into Neil. Two teams. GWS have nothing to play for. I think Neil will have a day out. I think Laird against Collingwood. Collingwood will not tag. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for him there. If you went McRae, the reason I don't recommend McRae is he will score like a 120 and you'll be like, do I captain this or not? And you have that decision to make. So I think McRae is my preferred captain option in a later game. So you have that reliable 120 score. Essentially, your captain is that safety pick. As always, I am using Port Adelaide as that line or buffer. So, lastly, I just want to do something really sweet, what I found interesting, and I want to look at the metrics. I know I'm not pumping up my own tires. I just want to look at the metrics quickly. 434 views. That is so sweet. I'm thanking to everyone that viewed the first ep. 30 likes, 2 dislikes. That's cool. More likes than dislikes means I'm a tolerable human, I guess. One thing I did find funny was trying to upload less episode 1. It was too big. That's what she said. And then comments. I want to talk about comments because there was 2 comments that made me laugh. And I think this shows how much of an absolute idiot I am. The first one's by Shane Love. What a breath of fresh air, non-bias, amazing what you can roar when you're not completely one-eyed. I mean, I am simping hard for Gold Coast here, but I'm sure will forgive me. And you actually watch the games. It's a prick to watch the games. I did notice a funny blooper. So the article I talked about was, I said by Daniel Radcliffe, not Radcliffe, but Ratcliffe, instead of Damien. And I just realised, God, I'm an idiot. So I thought that was quite funny, and I did respond, and I do respond to every comment. And I just went, yeah, well, I'm a Harry Potter nerd. I kept it in there because I think it's funny. For me, the other comment that made me laugh was, this is shithouse. Scoops is way better. Okay, that's cool. Why did you comment on that? I mean, if you're going to comment something, at least call me a shit human. Or comment on my face or my facial hair. The patchy beard here is a bit, like, cringe. But, like, at least insult me properly, guys. Please. But anyway, on that note, on the final discussion points here, thank you so much for everyone that watches. If you want to comment, like, if you want to tell me I'm a horrible human, go for it. If you want to give feedback, go for it. That's why I'm here. But lastly, if you want me to chat to me about football casually, I'm on Twitch. I stream there on Thursdays and Sundays. I love talking football. I love talking nerd. I am a massive dork. I own it. And lastly, please remember, we're all silly. We're all here to have a laugh. You might as well enjoy it. So thank you. Thanks for watching. And I will see you next time. Let's play the outro.